Okay, I'm making another video again. This time it's gonna be about, guess what? It's going to be about hierarchy, which is, okay, first of all, I should probably explain, something about hierarchy. I already made a video about power dynamics, its normalization, how, power dynamics in things like romance, especially straight romance, is very inherent to it. And it's like unnatural, basically. The way that power dynamics affect people and how it's a real thing. Yeah, power dynamics are real according to my methodology. Hierarchies is basically systematic power dynamics. That's like really the easiest explanation for it. People like to treat it as a complicated thing, but really it's systematic power dynamics that chooses, which is in line with the culture and class of certain things. I wrote a little thing here, which first I'm gonna read out, and then elaborate on these. We have explained how hierarchy is the main tool to spread culture through, well, grooming, education, whatever. Explain hierarchy, explain how class affects culture through who makes it. Class leaders are not all about money. Explain how class sets up monetary hierarchies. Hierarchy bad. Dominance gross, because I still do hold that it's disgusting. Hierarchy as power dynamics in systematic practice. Hierarchy is real and similar to a relationship abuse, basically, if you think in the power dynamic system. I make a defense and attack on. So I can't really say that word, so instead I'll say like familial romanticization. Yeah, familial romanticization. That's the word I'm gonna use for it. The thing Nick Land talked about, the prohibition of power is not hierarchy, but coercion, grooming, and reliance is. Polygamy and hetero couples have the same issues of separation of values in people, and the separation of love across people causes hierarchy if not done in an equal manner. However, sex and romance leads to an inability of equality. Polygamy always has hierarchy, straights too, because love is not platonic. The solution is to make love platonic. The platonicization of love, and that hierarchy is unjustifiable due to the grooming of culture. You're not really in the right headset to justify or consent to hierarchy because, well, grooming. Yeah, the main reasons why minors can't consent in general is usually not just because, oh, well, their brains are underdeveloped, but also because of hierarchy in society, grooming and such like that. That literally limits your ability to consent on certain issues. It's the same thing with prisoners and prison guards and whatever. I guess like parents and the children, if they're over the age, I guess, same thing. It's all about roles and whatever, and how that affects people and limits your abilities. Oh, I bit my, like, the top part of the skin on my inner lip, and it's like, it's gross. I hate that. Yeah, hierarchy in general is a real thing because you can find it in nature. It's very, it's not a social construct. Although nature is still a cultural thing that can create social constructs because it's a culture of Darwinism. The difference is that hierarchy kind of created that main survival of the fittest culture in general. It's also the tool that hierarchy, that culture uses to influence it. Hierarchy uses culture in culture uses hierarchy in many ways, such as how you learn about the cultural ideals or morals or values is through the hierarchy of familial settings and such like that. That's where you get your morals and stuff by being taught, and it's usually not consensual because, once again, you can't. This still leads to the issue that it's still considered grooming. Usually grooming is defined as a normalization of something that usually is made in a way to negatively impact people. But either way, it's normalization. If you get rid of the negative connotation, the idea that it's bad. If you get rid of the idea that it's bad, it's just normalization of certain things. Yes, there's financial grooming, which is reliance with the normalization of it, which leads to financial grooming, which is the same thing with any sort of grooming. It's normalization through reliance. Education is grooming through the reliance of the children on the adults, so they have to rely on their morals and them in general financially to kind of support themselves. So they have to accept these certain ideas. You already know romantic and sexual grooming. That's all, but people already know that. But in the end, it's about normalization through reliance, which is what hierarchy usually is. The reliance and normalization of reliance. Hierarchy is pretty much the tool in which grooming is used. I guess class in a way also sets up monetary hierarchies through people and, companies and all that, which kind of brings in the line that these three things are kind of like a triangle. I hate triangles, but whatever. In hierarchy, class, and culture, they're all interconnected, really. Class sets up certain hierarchies. Hierarchies created culture and class in a way, and culture relies on hierarchy to keep itself in place. Class affects culture because, it chooses who leads the culture, who creates the ideas and morals of the culture through what the dominating class is, like the feudalist or the capitalist or whatever. But these ideas, unlike what Marx said, it's not only based in monetary values. Yes, they have the objective to make as much money as possible, but they also have other objectives, like keeping certain people down, certain people they personally don't like, and keeping their own ego in check. Because you get a sort of, in Hegel's dialectic master slave and blah blah blah, you get a sort of like idea of you need to have some sort of enemy group in order to prove yourself to be real. It's this delusion of insecurity that they use to have to demonize certain groups. Europe people thought they were better than everyone else, and since they were on top at the time in global capitalism, that's like the thing of racism and all that. It's not all about just money and stuff. It's also about superiority and other things. Yeah, I can say hierarchy bad. I don't think I have to explain that. Since it's grooming through reliance and normalization, then it's a bad thing. Well, it's not necessarily bad because, there's no bad. But, of course, if you're the one receiving it, you're going to think it's bad because, you're being harmed. Unless you, enjoy the harm. In which case, once again, that's why you can never know if it's bad or not. I'm not going to say hierarchy is bad because, once again, I don't know. But in my opinion, it's a negative thing for me. So I'm going to write it as bad. Dominance gross, I think I've already gone through that on the straight video. Yeah, I don't like it. Hierarchy has power dynamics in systematic practice. Yeah, you can see that for the reliance. Power dynamics is usually based upon one being reliant on the other, or one having more control over the other. That is the same thing that happens in hierarchy, which is like reliance on certain people and normalization of it. And it's the same thing. That's why usually most power dynamics are associated with grooming and such with hierarchy. It's a real thing because, I've already said that, and how it doesn't have a real dialectic opposite. Well, no. You don't need a dialectic if you are the dialectic. I mean, class doesn't have an opposite. Class is the entirety of the opposite system. It is the dialectic. Therefore, it doesn't have to have a dialectic. But hierarchy specifically, the main thing that makes it real is the fact that it's not a social constructed idea. It is a physical, literal thing. Just because you can't touch it doesn't mean anything. Actually, on familial romanticization, because I actually had a whole Twitter thread about this, which I think I read out, but most of the time it's actually based upon cultural morals on why it's wrong, or some sort of biological factor such as inbreeding or something, even though a majority of people already agree that love is not about reproduction and blah blah blah. But at the same time, there's a sort of hierarchy in there that usually I blame it on like age and such, because that's the main hierarchical issue. But there's also things such as the lack of platonicization of family. Even though family is a platonic idea, it tries to make itself define. It makes itself define, even though it's something platonic. It tries to make itself as better than platonic, bigger than platonic. It's like a curse if you ever hurt the feelings of these people, not because you actually love them more, but because you feel like you're supposed to. It's even though it's platonic, it's seen as something more than platonic, because it pushes itself as something more than platonic, even if that's not true. Therefore, familial romanticization, in that you would have to have a real family, like a platonic family, in which you can see that it's completely platonic, not one of those defined made families that believe, even though they're platonic, they believe there's something more than platonic, familial love. That's not real. That's just platonic. And the idea that it's something more than platonic is the thing that created the hierarchical issues with familial romanticization, because if you see it as something more than platonic, I've heard in the whole parent-child thing, because that's already related in, hierarchy of reliance and the normalization of it. There's also with, other parts, like siblings and stuff. The issue with that is because people are too afraid to see it as completely platonic. You try to, basically suck up to and, just bootlick each other. And that's basically how majority of this stuff goes. And people, try not to make each other angry or something. Well, that really is structural issues, I'll say. It's stupid. But that's usually what happens, in which creates grooming scenarios, which is the main issue in familial romanticization, because of grooming issues, because of the definition of familial platonic existence. And it's literally that causes majority of the issues. I would say the issue isn't in romanticization of familial itself, but instead the idea that family is more than what it really is, and it's something over platonic, it's something familial. That's the main issue that creates these issues in romanticization of it. But also at the same time, I still have a critique on love itself, so I still have to think that maybe, just maybe, platonic, it's just better than any of the other options in general. It doesn't matter. I'll get to that though. Power is not hierarchy. Coercion, grooming, and reliance is. I already went through that. Because just because you have power over something doesn't really mean that it's reliant on you completely. It has power of its own against it. The second it becomes about coercion or reliance, that's when it becomes an issue. Polygamy, heterosexuals, and love. Here is the main thing. So there's something about polygamy that actually, Doma today's whole hate for polygamous people, there's a reason for that. She's basically going off of her own experiences, which in that it's actually a representation of the main issues in hierarchy in polygamy in general. because people cannot just love equally. They have a system about that. The most probably one of the primary or less than one of the primary or secondary, because they have different levels of partnership or different roles and different kinds because of who you're living with, who you first fell in love with, who's the main one, who do you care about the most, stuff like that. Stuff like that creates an issue in treating everyone equally, or how much you actually love each other, because love is degraded when you have to basically split it, because there becomes issues of favoritism and such as that. And favoritism makes people insecure, and insecurity and whatever. But then favoritism, you actually see this a lot with certain people complaining all the time. But favoritism does make people jealous and insecure and pretty stupid. The issue about that is that the majority of the time in hierarchies, there's gonna be favoritism if it comes to polygamy or straightness. I mean, for straightness, it's more like reliance due to cultural norms and the normalization of it. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say that all straight couples are grooming, but there's a reliance and a normalization of it that is completely man-made and not anything else. But with polygamy, it's more a hierarchy of, I wouldn't say control, but who's more important, which still has control over each other in a way. They're reliant on each other to see certain things. Like the primary couple, the secondary couple is reliant on the primary couple to see how far the boundaries go and such. And that's technically also, I forgot what it's called. Oh yeah, reliant on the secondary couple to see a tri-dairy and who you're living with. It's your reliance to see your living with situation couple, to see with the main one and the main one with the other ones, and blah 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 blah. It's all relying on each other in the web. But instead of being some sort of one-off big web system where in the end I guess you could say it's all equal, when really it's not. It's just complicated and stupid. Instead, it's more hierarchical and ordered, and in the way where certain people have more control over certain people than other people, and it's completely favoritist and causes a bunch of insecurity with that. In which also, it's still technically, I guess, I wouldn't say grooming because it's not, but it's abusive basically. Which I think I should have had there about how, hierarchy is similar to abuse in some cases where grooming is not an appropriate word for it. When there's a conscious decision, but it's still kind of abusive because it leads to certain insecurity growth and other issues that isn't based in grooming, but just other issues. It's not done in an equal manner, and you can't have it in an equal manner, first because of the conditions and the material conditions, and prioritization, and how difficult and convoluted that would be, and also the fact that people are naturally insecure and need more values than others to feel it's genuine, but also because of romanticization and sexualization on certain levels of control and power over people in that structure, which leads to equality being pretty difficult to achieve. Polygamy will always have hierarchy, and so will straight. The main solution to that would to be making it platonic. Yeah, it's really that simple. Because platonic things, the difference between platonic and romantic really is value. Platonic is less valued than romantic, and that's really it. I wouldn't understand it at all, honestly, but in my understanding, that's how it works. You value more these certain people. If you didn't value these at all, there wouldn't be so many issues on who you value more or what's more important than who, and who gets treated this, or blah, 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 blah. If there's no sort of importance to all of this, if it didn't matter if you were the favorite or not, if it didn't matter about the whole situation in the first place, if it was completely pretty much platonic, then there wouldn't be an issue. So the platonicization of love is the main solution to the hierarchical issues in all these relationships and such. I just hold this to be self-evident. Oh, and I already went on about how hierarchy is unjustifiable because of the grooming of culture and blah blah blah. Yeah. But basically, outside of that, that's really all I had to say. Yeah, that was like 20 minutes long. Let me go through and see what else I can see here. Max General understood the grooming of culture. He just didn't really know how to put it in words. That's something completely unrelated, but whatever. Still scrolling through here because I remember I had something to talk about, but I don't remember. Yeah, no. And then you record.